Hey there. So what I want to show you today is a new way that we're going to be doing things going forward. So like this is super relevant to you for a bunch of reasons. Basically, the first thing is that this approximates more closely what industry is about and how industry works. And you're going to industry. You're going to be working on a team of professionals and you want to know what's up. The other reason that this is super important to you is because you're going to be expected to behave like this going forward. And so if you can't, then that's going to be a big problem. But honestly, like this isn't too hard. This is pretty straightforward stuff. So you guys have already been doing a lot of work, submitting a whole lot of projects and code, and that's wonderful. You've been doing it with Git, which is great because Git is a fantastic tool. But you've only been using like a small slice of Git, like a little tiny piece of what it can do, right? So I think you have not yet been introduced to feature branching, possibly. So in the beginning of your syllabus, you did a little project, a little exercise where you learned about Git making commits and making branches. So I'm just going to do a little revision there. Let's make some shapes. So this is a commit, and generally you're kind of used to this sort of shape. We have a commit, and then you make another commit, and then you make another commit, and they all like line up nicely in your mind, and they have a name, like master. So this together, each of these is a commit. Each of these has a message associated with it. Each of these is associated with a bunch of like changes to code. So this one might be like, the change to the code was we added a README that had some text in it. This one might be, okay, we added this new file that, I don't know, exposes, or doesn't matter. There's an index.html file, and now the index.html file looks better. So each of these things is like a version of your code, and it has a little message to say what it is. And together the last one of these is labeled with a branch name. So the branch is this really, but this has a parent and this has a parent. Great, so that's a branch. But now let's say you're working on a team, and teamwork is a little bit different because like one of the cool things about working on the team is that you all get to like make contributions. But the bad thing is that if you're trying to make contributions to the same code base, it can get really chaotic and you just end up hating each other and stepping on each other's toes. And so there's this thing called feature branching that makes use of Git to make life actually like reasonably like you can pursue success. So basically you end up with more than one branch. So let's say somebody's got the job of creating a registration page and they start making commits, and then somebody else has a job of making something fancy. So each of these branches has its own name. So master's still this thing, and each of these branches can have its own like number of commits in it. Let's make a few more commits just so it's easier to display what's going on. All right, so this one might be feature registration, and this one might be feature, I don't know, cat pictures. Whatever the feature is that you're driving towards. Sweet. So that's cool. But then in the end, what you want is for your code to live inside the master branch, right? So we've got these two team members. Maybe there's like 2 people working on this and 2 people working on this. Who knows? Doesn't matter. The point is that we have different branches for different things, and then we merge the branches together at the end of the day. So let's say feed registration, this person believes that they're done, so they ask to merge to master. So they make this thing called a pull request, which you should be familiar with by now, but if you're not, that's okay. But basically they say what they'd like the situation to be is this. They're like, oh, please, can you make this a reality, right? So this is a pull request, or this is a merge. This is what a merge ends up looking like, where this has two parents. A pull request is a request to make that happen. And that's not something specific to Git, that's something specific to GitHub. So there's a cool front end that we use to make this happen. GitHub has like some alternative things out there. So there are some competitors to GitHub, and they have their own terminology around it. So it might be a merge request, it might be a pull request, it might be something else. But in the end, it's a request. So this dev working here is like, please, can I merge my stuff to master? And then another dev, or maybe a group of other devs, will review their code and actually look at it and say, does this code make master better? Yes or no? If it does, then they approve. If it doesn't, then they don't approve. So basically, when you merge to master, it doesn't necessarily mean that your feature is complete. It just means it's going to make master better than it was, and like further along than it was. So maybe once it's merged, this person actually needs to do a bit more work on their feature to get it up to scratch. Maybe they need to merge more than once, and that's totally okay. So we could be here. So now this last thing is called registration. This over here is called master, and that's still called feet cat pictures, and this person's like lagging behind because they're screwing around. Sweet. So that's basically feature branching. There's a lot more to it, but like that's basically it. So yeah. So once some code has been merged into master, right? The next step, let's say this person finishes their, I'm just going to delete those actually, it'll make it easier. So let's say, except that. Alright, so let's say this actually completes the feature and the registration form actually works end to end and life is good. That means that feature exists in master, but there's another step to it. It's like it needs to exist in master, but also it needs to work. Like it needs to be like tested in a way that's more about the end user accepting that this is correct. So we have these things called, so we use this thing called Agile, right? And you guys should be kind of familiar with Agile by now because it's awesome and cool. But basically Agile has a whole lot of tools and mechanisms associated with it. One of those tools is a board. And the board, I should actually probably just show you a real board. The board has some columns in it, right? So let me just do this for now. So like you could open up Trello if you wanted to and take a look at that, but basically it's like a thing with columns, and the columns have names like backlog, which really means like to do. This is your to-do list. You can have another column called in progress. In review. And there's another one. Whoa, that's not what I meant to do. There's in review, there's a thing called UAT, which I'll talk about in a second, and done. So that's kind of your goal, to get things to done. And what you have inside these columns are these things called tickets or issues. And an issue might be registration, right? Another one might be cat pictures. And these are cards. And whenever you start working on something or finish working on something or ask for a kind of review, then the card moves across to the next column. So when somebody says that messiness, okay, It's less messy. All right, so let's say you're working on the master branch, you get to this point, then this branch, somebody takes it on, they're like, I want to do the registration. Then they take this card and they move it across to in progress. Like, I'm working on this now, right? And then when they want to merge it, they say like, okay, cool, I'm making a pull request. Now it's in review. And now the other devs will review this thing. And then once it's merged and the devs are like, we think this is okay, we think that this is production ready code, then at that point they move it across to UAT. So UAT is user acceptance testing. So basically there's usually you're writing code because you want to achieve a goal, like you wanna launch something, make it live in the world. So you need this thing to exist in a way that users can actually register. So UAT is user acceptance testing. And that's when you get a user to go and click around and do things, and they will say like, yes, this works, or this is like a little dodgy in this way. If they accept it, then it goes to done. It's like, now you're actually complete. Like, once the user says you're done, then you're on a good track. And there might be some extra columns here for different things. So for example, there might be a review feedback column in case like a review is not in a passing state. Like if somebody says like, no, I'm not going to merge this because it's got these dodgy things going on, you didn't test your code, man, then maybe we'd have another column. So this column structure here isn't like the be all and end all. In general, agile processes are very malleable, but I mean, you can make your own flavor, and that's really, really cool. But this is the general structure. It's like, first it's in your to-do list, and then you do it, and then you review it, and then the user checks that it's okay, and then you're done. So that's great. So how does that relate to us, right? So how things have been working in the past with your project. So we give you these assignments, that's kind of like your backlog, and then you do them, that's the in progress column, and then you hand them in, and you kind of skip everything, and then the staff sort of do this, but you're not too involved, and then maybe you're done, or maybe we just like bat it back to you and say, please get this done. But the problem is that you're missing out on a whole lot of the stuff. So what we've done is, like, you're missing out on taking the actions here, which isn't that cool, because I mean, like, no developer in a real company working on a real team trying to like actually make a difference in the world would not do code review. So everybody does code review in real life, and you guys haven't done that yet. So that's terrible. Like it's not the ideal situation. And on top of that, you're not familiar with like how it feels to have things flow through here and what it means and all of that. So what we've done is remixed how we want to work with projects with you. So brace yourselves for impact. Yes, this is the page. All right, so you're going to go to this URL, and I'll share it with you just now. But basically, you go here and you log in with your Umuzi email address. So